The Browns quarterback situation and who he believes to be starting. I'll let you guys take a listen.
My guess is Deshaun Watson.
I'll say that.
But that's money talks, right? No, because the money's paid already. That's different. You did have to pay him years ago to get him, but that money's paid.
Right.
The minute Ian Rapoport brought up Deshaun Watson as the likely starter, the whole debate exploded for a reason. Browns fans have already lived through enough of this experiment to know how ugly it can look. We are not talking about a random quarterback competition where both guys are unknowns. We are talking about a veteran who was brought in to save the franchise and instead became one of the biggest headaches the team has had to carry, versus a young quarterback in Shedeur Sanders who represents hope, curiosity, upside, and the possibility of finally turning the page. So when an insider comes out and says Watson is probably starting, people are not just reacting to the football part of it. They are reacting to the emotional exhaustion of hearing Cleveland might be stuck in this same loop again.
Here's my argument. When he's been healthy, he's been for sure good enough to be a starter. And there are games when he broke his shoulder.
See what I'm saying?
2 years ago?
Like,
2 years ago, right?
come
When he
on,
broke
man.
his shoulder.
Yeah.
He led the team back from a comeback, on a comeback, and was like, all right, this guy's really starting to play well.
Right. Then he
Here's the part nobody is talking about. Rapoport's conclusion and the logic behind it are not exactly the same thing. The conclusion might be right. Deshaun Watson might very well open the season as QB1, but the logic being used to get there is where this thing gets messy. Because if the argument is that Watson should start because he has simply played at a higher NFL level before, that sounds fair at first. If the argument is that he has had stretches where he was clearly good enough to be a starter, that is also true in the broadest sense. But if you actually watch the Browns tape and not just the old Houston highlights, the conversation changes fast. Now you are not looking at an elite quarterback having a rough patch. Now you are looking at a player whose timing, pocket feel, rhythm, durability, and decision-making have all looked shaky enough to make you ask a more uncomfortable question. Are the Browns starting the better quarterback, or are they starting the more expensive mistake?
You agree with Rapoport that Watson will be the Browns QB1 to start the season?
I agree that Rapoport will be I agree with Deshaun Watson will be the starter. I don't agree with Rapoport's logic to get him there. Yeah. Deshaun Watson has played some bad games. Let's call it what it is. I know Deshaun personally, you know what I mean? We've had some great conversations. He's been nothing but great to me. But he's had some bad games. Should he be the starter? Yes, because he's played at a higher level than Cleveland Browns quarterbacks have in the last 2 years. That's why he should be the starter.
That is why the reactions in your source material were so revealing. One side said yes, Watson should start because right now he is probably still better than a second-year Shedeur Sanders who may not be fully ready. Another side pushed back hard and said, hold on, have you actually watched this man play in Cleveland? Because the tape has not looked like a franchise answer. And that is the real tension inside this whole story. Nobody is denying that prime Deshaun Watson was a serious player. In Houston, he was electric. There were real moments where he looked like he was climbing into that superstar tier, that top-level quarterback tier where a guy can carry games even when the roster around him is flawed. That player existed. That is not fake. The problem is the Browns have not been getting that player, and Browns fans are tired of being told to judge Watson by who he used to be instead of who he has actually been for Cleveland.
Should be a starter, yes, because he's probably better today than a second-year Shedeur Sanders that had 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Will he be better than Shedeur in a year, 2 years? I don't know. But today, right now, Deshaun Watson is better. Deshaun Watson is going to be more conducive to Browns' success, and the Browns are still probably a year or so away from winning anything substantial anyway. So, yes, Deshaun will be and should be the day 1 starter in Cleveland. Doesn't mean he'll be the week 10 starter in Cleveland, but he's probably better than Shedeur is today.
This is where it gets dangerous, because front offices love getting trapped by their own investment. The contract is so massive, the trade cost was so huge, the public embarrassment is so obvious that admitting failure becomes almost harder than continuing the experiment. And that is exactly how bad situations drag on longer than they should. The minute someone says money doesn't matter because the money is already paid, that sounds clean in theory, but in reality, that is not how organizations behave. Owners care, general managers care, coaches care, everybody involved cares because benching Watson is not just a football move. It's an admission that one of the biggest swings in Browns history went horribly wrong, and people in power do not like making that kind of admission unless they're absolutely forced to. So yes, money matters, ego matters, optics matter, saving face matters. That is why this battle is bigger than who gives Cleveland the best chance in September. If the Browns start Watson, it may not be because he clearly outplayed everybody in camp. It may not even be because the building truly believes he is the best quarterback on the roster right now. It may be because too many people need this to work at least one more time. They need one more chance to say, see, this is why we did it. They need one more runway before the whole thing becomes permanent franchise shame. That is why national takes on this story can feel so disconnected from what Browns fans are actually seeing. From the outside, it's easy to say Deshaun has played winning football before. From the inside, fans are sitting there saying, yeah, but when exactly are we supposed to stop living off old resume points?
But the reason he should start is like, if you're Shedeur, I don't even know that I want to throw Shedeur out to these wolves once again, if you believe that Shedeur's future is all that promising. And also, Deshaun Watson's ceiling is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL ceiling. We ain't seen it in 5 years, I'm gonna be honest. But he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL ceiling.
And that brings us to Shedeur Sanders, because his presence changes the tone of all of this. If the Browns did not have a young quarterback sitting there, this conversation would be simpler. Watson starts by default, everybody shrugs, and the team hopes for the best. But Shedeur changes the stakes, because now there is a visible alternative. Now there is a new name fans can project onto the future. Now every bad Watson throw, every hesitation in the pocket, every sack he takes, every stalled drive becomes instantly tied to the same thought. Why are we not seeing what the kid can do? That is the problem with veteran placeholders when a young quarterback is in the room. The starter does not just have to perform. He has to constantly justify why the future is still sitting down. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They think the battle is only about talent. It is not. It is about timing, protection, development, politics, expectations, and what the organization is trying to accomplish in the short term versus the long term. That is why some of the arguments for Watson starting do make football sense, even if fans hate hearing them. If you truly believe Shedeur has a chance to become the long-term answer, then you do not necessarily want to throw him out there before the environment is ready. You do not want him learning behind a shaky offensive line under massive pressure, with the fan base expecting him to fix everything immediately. There is logic in protecting a rookie or young quarterback from chaos. The problem is that logic only works if the veteran in front of him is stable enough to make the waiting worthwhile. And that is the issue with Watson. He is not some calm bridge quarterback who is going to keep the ship steady while the rookie develops quietly. He is one of the most controversial, expensive, scrutinized players in the league, and his own play has not been stable enough to create real peace. So instead of giving Shedeur the benefit of patience, Watson might actually create the exact opposite environment. The team could spend the first month forcing the veteran onto the field, struggling through ugly tape, listening to louder and louder calls for the rookie, and then eventually tossing Shedeur in anyway once the situation is even messier. That is the danger. If you are going to sit the young quarterback, it needs to be behind a veteran who is actually buying you time. If the veteran is just buying you noise, then what are you really accomplishing? Still, the people arguing for Watson are not pulling their case out of thin air. One of the strongest points they make is simple. Deshaun Watson has played real NFL football at a much higher level than anyone else in that room. That matters. It is not nothing. He has seen NFL defenses, handled NFL speed, won games in this league, and at his best was absolutely a high-end quarterback talent. If the Browns believe there is any real chance that version of Watson can be even partially recovered, then of course they are going to be tempted, because they don't even need him to be Houston-era Deshaun. They just need him to be functional. That is an important distinction. Cleveland does not need superhero Watson. They need competent Watson. They need above-average Watson. They need the version of him that can give them 24 touchdowns, keep interceptions manageable, hit enough throws, and let the rest of the roster carry weight. Here's the part nobody is talking about. That version of Watson might still be too optimistic, not because the talent disappeared overnight in some cartoon way, but because quarterback decline is rarely one clean thing. Sometimes it is physical, sometimes it is confidence, sometimes it is timing, sometimes it is rust, sometimes it is trauma from pressure, sacks, criticism, and instability stacking on top of each other. And sometimes the worst part is that all of it blends together. That is why people keep saying, where did the juice go? Because when you watch the Browns film, you're not just seeing a guy miss throws, you're seeing a player who at times looks late to the picture, late to the window, late to the read, late to the answer. And when that happens at quarterback, the entire offense starts playing scared. The numbers can hide some of that. Career touchdown to interception ratio? Fine. Historical production? Strong. Reputation still carries weight. But tape has a way of cutting through all the excuses. Tape tells you if a quarterback knows where to go with the ball. Tape tells you if he feels pressure before it arrives. Tape tells you if he still trusts what he is seeing. And some of the sharpest criticism in your source material wasn't even about Watson physically looking washed. It was about him looking mentally disconnected from the position. That is a much scarier problem, because if a quarterback can't process with conviction anymore, the arm talent stops mattering as much. This is where it gets dangerous, because organizations often talk themselves into the ceiling long after the floor has taken over. They remember the player who once threatened defenses with his legs, improvised magic off schedule, attacked deep windows, and made difficult throws look normal. They keep saying, if we can just get 75% of that guy back. But football doesn't work that way forever. At some point, the version you are chasing becomes a memory instead of a forecast, and the Browns have to be brutally honest about whether they are evaluating Watson based on current reality or based on who he was before all the injuries, pressure, controversy, sacks, missed time, and public collapse of confidence. At the same time, there is a reason some former players still defend the idea of opening with Watson. They know how brutal it is for a young quarterback to get thrown in too early. They know that one of the fastest ways to ruin a prospect is to make him the answer before he understands the questions. Shedeur Sanders has talent, poise, and a lot of belief around him, but that does not automatically mean he should take the field from day one. The NFL punishes young quarterbacks who are asked to rescue unstable situations. If the Cleveland offensive line is still finding itself, if the offense is still being retooled, if the coaching staff is still figuring out what this team is, then there is a serious argument for not asking Shedeur to carry that immediately. That part is fair, but here's the counter that Cleveland fans are going to keep coming back to. If Watson starts and looks bad, what exactly has Cleveland gained? A month? 6 weeks? A delay? Because once the tape goes south again, the pressure shifts right back to the rookie anyway, and then you have burned time, lost patience in the room, and maybe already dug a hole in the standings. That's why the Week 1 starter debate matters so much. It's not just a ceremonial choice, it shapes the whole tone of the season. Start Watson, and you are telling everybody this organization still believes the old investment deserves one more serious shot. Start Shedeur, and you are telling everybody the future matters more than protecting the pride of past decisions.